Unfortunately, I wasn't able to host yesterday, so this means that we will have to extend this to Monday. So our 10th session will be extended to Monday, same link. I will extend Zoom meeting also, but I don't think that if you even loaded this to your calendars, that this will update automatically. I think that calendar file should be loaded again if you want this in your calendar, but otherwise the link is the same. So you should be able to join Monday, no problem. I do understand that maybe some of you have already some other commitments for Monday. Sorry for the inconvenience. Hopefully recording will suffice. Everything that is related to um, certification process is going to be at the very end of day 10 session. So if you won't be able to attend and you just see that recording and you still have some questions, feel free to email me. I will try my best to explain the certification process as best as I can. So now to our today's session. Before we proceed with today's agenda, I wanted to address two issues that we faced on Wednesday. First one is with the service. Now, I did had some compilation errors that I will address later, how to fix those. Unfortunately, this is not a quick thing. We won't be able to do this online. It will require multiple recompilations. Um, to fix this, I did not have to go to build logs. The error itself was pretty descriptive, but with service it wasn't descriptive. So what I did, I've switched to the environment that I use to used to prepare and tried to implement service in there. And if you remember, we had an issue where the service was called, but the error message, unfortunately non-descriptive, only said that I was building a bad request, which meaning that I was building something that my service is not accounting for. So I'm still in this preparation environment, Y1 dev, and unfortunately, because this is a preparing environment, I'm kind of rushing through items as I'm planning what I'm going to demonstrate. And because of this rushing through, I'm not very careful. And what I did, I introduced this column called user column 15 for status. This is actually a very easy to achieve mistake. This happens a lot if you are rushing through it, but you should only rush if you are maybe creating a one-time demo for a prospect. So what I did, I introduced a new column that was related to a reference to yacht statuses. I gave it a title status, and most likely when I went here, I gave it a what I thought would be a proper code, but did not confirm it. This is something that often happens if you rush through. So in this scenario, what actually happens is this. You think that you have a proper code, you do not confirm it, and you end up with a generic code for your column. So how is this related to our service? In our service, so we're not going through all of this because this, I hope, um, makes mistake since I explained it on Wednesday. But the problem here is with the building my SQL query. We're instantiating the select class that can operate directly with database, and in it we use some functions in order to build a direct SQL query. And so here I was expecting that my column code is status. So in my original that you will see in the video, it looked like so. which means that such a column in my database simply does not exist. Instead, what exists, a column that is a foreign ID of a status, is column 15 ID. So now this is already a published fix. I can actually try my service. No filters. Sorry, I was fast. So I just clicked yacht service, and here is my call. Here is my request for yacht service. Method get max price type ID, type post, status 200 OK. There are some other items that we will discuss today, but my payload body of my request is just the drive type that I, with my handler, extract from page attribute drive type and add it to my and deploy this with my request, and I have the response. 27 is what do we do here? Maximum. 27,000 is maximum. Your task is to build average service. So use the video recording if you haven't introduced this service already. Use the video recording and recreate, but do average instead. So now I'm closing my Y1 dev. No, sorry. Another thing that was a trouble in my original dev environment, Y3 dev compilation error. This is unfortunately not a quick and easy fix, but there are some items that can help us. So the problem with my environment was this. This can sometimes happen during network errors, during or because of the high load. I am now running 3 environments simultaneously. I'm now going to stop my one YDev. But when you have multiple environments running simultaneously on your IIS in the peak load, you can usually run into memory issues. You can even run into CPU load issues. There can be other factors contributing to this. But what we need to remember is when we simply use like simple compile action, there are a lot of hidden things that are happening inside. Even if we are modifying our object, even though modification doesn't says compile, in fact, you will have to dig through log files to know this. This is not very important to know and remember as long as you respect the complexity of this process. So when you make some changes, any changes, hit save and publish. What among many other things, for example, OData DLL will always be recompiled without asking you, even if you don't necessarily change the structure of your object. And I was trying to activate behavior live data update, that OData DLL recompilation still occurred. And the problem is with some back references, if I introduce city lookup reference to city in my yacht that we have, this means that to create some connections on some levels, not in the city object, but there's also the backwards connection is created, and there was an issue. So my fix was step by step. First, you usually try to restart. Well, restart didn't happen. You recompile your assembly. Maybe that doesn't help. You restyle the whole application. A long, extensive recompilation. Even in this environment, it will take 5 minutes, more or less. in real life scenario where you have a lot of assemblies and you want to recompile all, be prepared to wait 15 minutes and more. Um, Other things that can help. First, you want to check, maybe you have some red markers here, usually like circling arrows. What can happen is your database may not be a perfect reflection of your uh, current state of your object. This rarely happens, but it still can happen. So we've talked how object um, describes both object as logic and database as physics representation. So if um, object is not equal your database structure, Creatio will read into that and offer you a special operation that you can run to a specific object, which is update database structure. So essentially, Creatio will take the new state of the object as a source and try to update uh, database table. This wasn't my problem, but it can sometimes help. Also, there is another thing here, actualize item, where you can update structure where is needed. So it will check through all of the object. It still doesn't read like in time, make in time comparison. It will only check for those incorrect Boolean, for example, and incorrect, I mean this marker that says that there is a problem and only update those. And you have also this group actions for SQL and data files. Maybe not necessarily what I would recommend. It would simply see a data file and SQL script file that is not installed and delete it. If you remember, we did something for test environment. We had a SQL script that is isolated through the custom package. So we probably different environment. Or maybe I deleted it as a proper example so that it's not in the way. But we were unlocking package. Uh, Probably I locked it again. Don't quite remember. If you would be so kind, we did went through unlocking scenario, right? I assume that I probably locked it back as a proper example. Could you please confirm that I've shown
Yeah,
unlock?
yeah, we
Yeah,
did go through that.
yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Okay. And uh, final thing that you can try to do is to simply take the representation of your object. This is actually something that I tried first before anything, before compilations. So we have Object Designer, a low-code tool that allows you to modify, create new objects. But this is still a user graphical interface behind it. Once you change your settings, obviously Creatio I do copy.
Yes,
Hello.
hello
Yeah,
again.
perfect. Sorry for this. Probably you heard there are massive power shortages in Ukraine, so it creates some discrepancies. So I was saying about another option to try to fix your environment, which is forcing recreation of those files. This action is over here, generate source code for your object. So we have a configuration item representing, and we are generating source code, replacing whatever we have in file system with newly generating source code. So all these are options to fix your environment when you have compilation errors. Um, Usually they are descriptive. Sometimes they are not. When they're not, then we go to build log. We can actually check our build log. Uh, just a moment. Creation logs, default website. No creation, Y3 dev, zero log. So the problem occurred on 14th. Build, and yeah, there it is, right after OData compilation. We see the back reference error. So when you see back reference, usually recompilation would do, but what it means that a reference to user yacht couldn't been created. Maybe there is an issue. If you count them, they should more or less represent the number of lookups that are representing user yacht. Happens rarely, but this can happen. And again, this is usually when you would try to build your object, make modifications to it, and then there is some um, application server issues during that process. Lack of resources or other issues. So now we have a service that is hosted um, in our Creatio instance, and we can call it, and we only tried to call it from Creatio page, from Creatio using Creatio page and the new button. But we can actually use this, we can call this service from third-party applications as well. And now I'm going to use Postman, which is my third-party application, and try to call that service. So here I will try to create a new HTTP request. And if you remember, we had that test method for our service. Just a quick reminder here. And it is important, something that I mentioned in email, that you run this test in your browser before you try this more complex service. And today we'll see why. So REST, yacht service, get example. Oh, sorry. REST, yacht service, get example. And so we see this from our browser. Our browser is already running session with active credentials for this instance, and thus we are authorized to run this. But now we'll try third-party application and we'll do exactly the same. These is my testing samples from previous, but I will simply copy this. Method type is important, so get is our method type. And I will try to run the exact same from third party, and I should expect that I'm unauthorized. So this third party, when trying to call the same service, Creatio prevents access because this call is unauthorized. So this is the beginning of our new topic, which is authentication and working with cookies. So here we already have in our browser, we already have some cookies in place that allow us to run calls. In this third party, we are unauthorized, but we have a special service. We will use the forms authentication using cookies. And for that, we can use a special service for authentication. Uh, Maybe I'll be able to find it real quick, that service. So it's on the loader package loader level. We have service model, and here is authentication service. We are going to run this first in order to authorize further communication. So we can read about it in Creatio Academy, development on Creatio platform, integration tools, authentication, authentication basics, references, authentication service. As usually, everything is also included into our daily links. So here is authentication service for your reference. And we can see how to call the service. We have our request and response structure. So we see that this is a post type. We have some required headers. Now, I'm using Postman, so I won't need to put those headers together. If you will be using something else, you need those. Testing showed that this is outdated. This is no longer necessary. It is so by default. Hi, Katerina. Yeah, we're actually at the beginning. We're trying to authorize calls to our Creatio hosted services. And for that, we are using an inbuilt loader level authentication service. So we have a request, we have some headers, and we have a body, which is our credentials under which we're going to run this service. Now, one important thing that for my username and user password, I will be using supervisor. Supervisor, our super user with all possible accesses, with this type of authentication, will be able to do anything. If they will call services that would make changes, not something that we would recommend, but we can technically make services that would make changes to system tables. That would be possible. So maybe not. So for data exchange integrations, we will talk about data exchange on Monday, but maybe we should use a simpler user type. So now let's try this. I'll copy this service. So here is my Y3Dev. No zero in this scenario. This is a loader level, so no zero. Headers filled in by Postman. Thank you, Postman. For body, we will use raw JSON text. And we will simply copy paste this body in here. Username supervisor. User password supervisor. Let's send. Method not allowed. Okay, authentication service, login, service model, Y3Dev. This is correct. Let's see. Do we have anything useful in response? No, nothing. Sorry. Of course, method is not allowed. This, I did not change a very important property. This is a wrong type of request. This is the post type. Post, send. Okay. 200. Okay. We are now authorized. Let's try and run that get example test method again. Now that we are authorized, it's get type, send, and now we see the response that we have expected. Okay, perfect. Now, but this is a get, and you will something that I mentioned, we rarely use this type of for our services, callable endpoints, which is methods of our services. Usually we use post due to some extra level of protection. So back to my environment, and I will just now simply run that service that gives me maximum price again in order to just copy paste this request URL. So REST yacht service get max price by drive type. So I will copy this. I know that this is a post type. Here is my request. And I also remember that there is a some payload body to my request, which is the drive type ID. In this scenario, we provided from button. Now that I am running it from third party app, I'm going to input it manually into the body of request. I have this option to beautify. Didn't work properly because of the missing double quotes, but there's also something that I need to address here. My parameter name has to be in double quotes. So everything is fine. I see my, I expect that because of the authentication service, I should be allowed to run it. We've tried this with our test method. I also have my proper body to my request. I have a correct HTTP. I know this to be true because I've just tested this in Creatio environment, so it should work. And the thing is, in your trial and demo environment, it will work. So if you try this immediately in your environment, it will work. But if I try this, I will see forbidden, which is also not very restrictive. So it's not 401, where I would simply see, okay, I'm unauthorized, I know what to do. But I am specifically prohibited on top of the authentication to run this post type request. And this is because of something that is deactivated in your trial and demo environment. So this is why you will not see such a problem. If you try this, what is enabled in my environment is called, just a moment, cross-site request forgery, CSRF. So what it is, this is a level protection that in real life scenarios, in your local environments that you install in your actual environments with unique seed to them, you will have that enabled. Let's see if we see some cool images. So how this works, we have a user that has already established a secure connection well, maybe we'll see something, a better picture here. Yeah, I think this is, oh, sorry. So we have a user that has already created a connection, a secure connection to a service, a website, and they are running operations that they are willing to run, just like us using in this browser, just like us using our browser to simply run this. And what happens is someone with a bad intention will generate a request to a generate like a bad link with a request that user can accidentally or misleadingly hit in order to initiate something that they don't want to, for example, changing email address in this example, that they did not intend to, but this operation will be available to them and to the hacker because their connection is already secured. So in order to prevent them, this is obviously not 100% guaranteed secure method, but in order to prevent them, another layer of protection, which uses the temporary tokens that are also necessary to run any request. And if we go to get, which was allowed, and we open cookies, we will see multiple cookies here. And we will see some sessions ID, we will see loader, and we will actually see more cookies than we used to. We will see some duplications. That is because of migration from older naming to new naming. This wasn't present in 8.3.1. I see this in 8.3.2, and probably will get rid of this up to until next release. But the cookies that I'm interested here are two cookies which actually use the same token. BPM CSRF. BPM, if you remember, we were talking about legacy items in Creatio. So BPM means Business Process Manager from BPM Online product, and CSRF is cross-site request forgery. This is a new cookie titled CRT CSRF. CRT is a new convention for Creatio. So now we have both. And at least in this version, to be on the safe side, I will create both headers, BPM CSRF and CRT CSRF, though they actually share the same token. Again, hopefully this is very temporarily, this duplication. So now I'm taking this value from my tested get connection. I'm go to my post type method, and I'm going to headers, and I will add new header. So BPM CSRF, and insert the token, and also CRT CSRF, and use the same token. And now I'll try to send request again. Now we see that a request is successful, and we actually get the maximum ticket price by the same drive type, 9,000. So this works perfectly. And now I am running, I can run multiple requests from this third-party application, as long as there either gets and I am logged in, essentially. I'm running a session, an authorized session. And if this is a post type, I need to still run an active authorized session, but on top of them, I need to provide these tokens to within every request. And I can run these services. Now, regarding that user session, in Creatio, we have a sliding timeout, which is a system setting. Timeout is a session timeout that will affect both your actual users that are using Creatio system, but also your integrations because they will affect that authentication. So what sliding means? By default, timeout is set to 30 minutes. If I will not run any requests in the next 30 minutes, then my current session, we can see this, my current session will be over. And so if I'll try to run this 35 minutes from now, I won't be able to because my session is over. I would need to authorize again, log in under actual credentials, and only after I can run new requests. But because it's sliding, it can potentially be continuously unlimited in time. So it can go forever as long as you're running those operations. You can modify this uniquely for a specific user that you might need or might use for integrations. So if we go to users section, here is my supervisor who we did use. And under access rules, we can create a unique timeout. I think that minimum is 10 or 1 minute. Yeah, I think 1 is minimum. No, 10 is minimum. So if its value is empty, then we will use system setting called timeout, which is a global variable applied to all users. But this will override it for a specific user, so I can either extend it if necessary, or even make it shorter. And I will see now under my sessions that I have a session started. This is my local time when I started my session, that I had my session started in browser, and I keep running it. But I also have a Postman session. And from here, if I maybe see some sessions that I'm not sure about, I'm not aware about, so this is the third-party application name that has a current Creatio session using the supervisor's credential. And I can actually force finish that session. It doesn't happen immediately. It might require a few minutes. But if I terminated that session, here, if I try this again, I now see the unauthorized. Same would happen with the user timeout. So this is one of the protected ways to uh, communicate with Creatio, so from third parties. So this is called form authentication. The basic authentication is outdated and obsolete. I think since Creatio 7, so we are no longer using this. Hopefully this will be addressed soon in this article, so you can simply ignore this. We also have anonymous authentication, which is not something that is recommended. This should only be used in some edge cases when you have a very good and well-founded reason to use anonymous authentication. So, as name implies, we're not using specific user credentials. And we can actually look into it. We will not spend a lot of time. Yeah. So we could create a custom web service that would use anonymous authentication. Likely, it's much more complex comparing to usual because it's insecure. So you will need to make multiple steps. So, okay, first you have some web service, but it also has um, some um, some uniqueness to it. For example, the decoration is the same, but if we look into the connection, so it still says a system user connection, but the connection is not actually a specific user, but rather the so-called app connection. So not user connection with credentials, but app connection. And you will still need to modify a lot. You will need to register it in a specific library. You will need to also modify a few config files. But in the end, you can potentially have a web service that is anonymous, running application connection. So as long as your application server is up, you can run anonymous calls. So obviously, you will open your system to DDoS attacks. You can simply overload your application server. Third parties can overload your application server, running multiple instances of such requests. So this is not recommended, but possible. You can search by the name app connection, by the way, and find few applications that are in Creatio out of the box, but this is not something that is recommended for projects. Uh, an alternative, a good alternative to it, is OAuth authentication, which is something that is more popular. And oh, it's now even available by default. Until very recently, until a few weeks back, you would need to enable a special feature. But now we see that um, it is available even no longer as beta. So what this means is this. How this works is we have Creatio app and we have third-party app. And with forms, essentially what happens, third party makes a request to Creatio, but that request is also carrying a BPM CSRF token. It also carries current session ID that is authorized, and this is why Creatio will respect that request and respond to it. With OAuth 2, you need one more application. That application, that website, will be the identity service. And what it means is it's going to generate tokens that a technical user will be carrying for their request. So before running requests to Creatio, a third party will first reach out to identity service and obtain such a token. Then it will run request towards your Creatio app. Creatio app will first, Creatio app will first run request to identity, asking, here is the token that was part of the request. Is it valid? It will obtain response that yes, this token is valid. And if that is the case, Creatio will reply to the third party. So this is a much more complex, but generally considered more secure way for integrations. And the token carrier, which is designed for this process, is a so-called technical user. So previously, it's been around for almost a year now. Before that, you would need to use a regular user, which is inconvenience because it has to be licensed and so on. Technical user is not a licensed user. It doesn't have credentials in their usual meaning. We've lost Mahabub. Hopefully he will be able to restore connection. So technical user doesn't have credentials in its convention meaning, and we cannot log in as a technical user. So technical user cannot log in into system and run the system. But instead, this technical Mahabub, all good? You copy?
Yeah, I think I have some power issue. That's why I relog in again.
Oh yeah, I feel you. I
Yeah.
feel you with the power issues. Okay, so we have some technical users that don't have their conventional credentials. We use them as a token carriers, but we can still treat them as users from the perspective of access rights. For example, we can actually add them to functional roles, and so when we use them, those roles are going to be respected. So, for example, we have read-only permissions to objects. Well, that will depend. We were using some ALM integration, technical user, but here by object and operation permissions, we can restrict access to this to such technical users. So authentication is not is a more complex process. You will have to have a extra tool, a separate website, an identity service. So a more extensive, but usually considered more secure way. Next, um, user session. So we've discussed, and now we are jumping to object events, but maybe we shouldn't interrupt that. So let's take, as usually, a 15 minutes break. We will take an early break today, and then we will do this in a more continuous fashion. Okay, give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you. So I have 55 minutes. Let's get back to it in 15 when it's 10. I'm going to switch my power source now. So I'll be away for a few minutes, but I'll be back before we proceed. Thank you. Now we will talk about handling events in our objects. So first of all, as the name implies, these are object events, not database events. So if you have any database to database integration, obviously you will not be able to capture such events. This is usually only something that is employed in very big projects and some big enterprise companies, usually accommodating Oracle databases, and they can do such direct integrations, avoiding even touching the application server. But in most scenarios, actually, we are employing some object events, so Creatio entity schemas. And first type, we will talk about the start signal, the events that we can use using no code. So for some of you, this is probably a repetition, but hopefully I will offer you now a broader context to it. So I'm going to configuration, and we will add a simple business process that will react to adding a new yacht. The idea is this: if someone adds a new yacht and it is wow, you see, this is my status problem. Very bad. Okay, let's maybe spend some time, because if this happens, this is a bad thing happening. I am, and this is actually my status. How the hell would that happen? Let's go to advanced settings. I can still switch to Y1 dev, but I think we should invest some time, because this is something that I see happening a lot. So probably I was hiring something, but what it states that column status, this is the column status that my client side is relying to, no longer exists. Column removed, operational. And there is already a reference. And here's the reference. And new. Actually, I'm surprised that this is working so well, even though we have now a broken reference, which is a result to that compilation error. I want to check source code representation to it. And I want to see something called like column and some number. No, nothing. So what I'm looking for, so this is the problem. So what I'm looking for, now I'm looking into something very unusual and irregular, because my Freedom UI designer says that everything is okay, whereas my page in runtime says that I'm referring to a removed column, which is bad. But what usually happens if you accidentally remove a column, or if you have a compilation error like such where mapping is all wrong, so in your source code, you will have a reference to something like column page data source, column 10, column 9, column whatever. And what you want to do is to maybe simply comment out. So unfortunately, I don't have this to show you properly, but you want to comment this out from your source code, check if the element disappears on the page, and then refresh. Very weird scenario. So I see the data source is all proper. Let's just try to save this and do the hard refresh on our client. I've never seen anything like it, truth be told. So usually you would see here the same, something like column removed. You would see also a black pop-up saying that something is wrong with the reference, and that would be the fix. You go to source code, you comment it out, then this field would no longer appear on neither. Yeah, so resaving worked. but that field would reappear on both, disappear on both in Freedom UI Designer and in user runtime. Very weird, but yeah, obviously a problem with and I wonder how this is working. The problem could be is this is still relying on the same problematic status. Yeah, now I can select proper statuses, and with my new, yeah, now properly applied default value. I forgot that we actually had this logic, but we have default value for status. So it appeared to easy fix. Usually it's more complex. Again, you want to go to source code, find the missing reference and comment it out and then reintroduce it properly. Okay, so what I want to do is when someone adds a new operational yacht, then we will simply create 3 rental records. Not maybe too useful from the business perspective, but this is also your assignment. So how would we go about that? Back to our yacht package, add business process. We'll call this auto, add yacht rentals. Code, user, auto, yacht rentals, add. And now to object events. So for object events, we will use a special starter, which is a signal starter. A signal can actually react to some custom signals that we can create. Custom signal can be, we don't have any, but it can be either no code. We can throw signals from other processes and we can give it a unique name, throw signals, and we can capture. We can also encode some signals. We can use a C# file to build a custom signal and capture. But 99 times of 100, when you're using the signal, this is going to be reacting to an object signal or otherwise an object event. Object is yacht. And as of now, we only have 3 signals. Though good news is that I know that in our backlog, we have more. Right after. Right now, with no code, we only support 3 signals. Before record is inserted, oh, sorry, after, looking at after and saying before, after record is inserted, after record is modified, and before record is deleted. And this is the only way no code working with object events. And this is very important to understand when this occurs. So after an insert, we can initiate the process. After an update, we can initiate the process. And before deletion, we can initiate the process. And we will refer to deletion some more because there is an important thing here to mention, but we will react to adding a record. And then we specify not just any record, but we've also agreed that we only react to operational yacht. So in this scenario, it means that we are going to select a constant operational. And at this time, if I'm co-developing with someone else, again, I'm referring to a static value. This is a constant, which is an ID. So it is safer to go here and check my statuses And I can see yacht status as values. Thank you for naming convention. And if I go to bound data, operational is bound. Perfect. It is safe to proceed with my business process. Otherwise, as at the moment, if I'm the single developer, at the moment when I'm creating a lookup, I should bind it immediately. Okay. Now, a very useful feature here, run following elements in the background. This is by default activated only for signals. What does the background mean here? Without this feature, when it's deactivated for your more regular processes that require some user interaction, all the elements that you will be executing will run in this sequence only one after the other, and it will be added into a special queue, app scheduler. So they will run synchronously within the business process instance. And what background means is that instead, the app scheduler using Quartz technology will run all of the elements that are running in the background asynchronously at the first in a separate thread. So it will use a different core, I mean CPU core. So it will use a separate CPU core, it will use a different thread, and it will run process elements from different business process instances at first application availability, which means that they will simply be executed much faster. So usually for signals, we run following elements in the background. The only exception is deletion of the record. In Creatio, there is no out-of-the-box soft delete, only true SQL delete. So more often than not, if a record is deleted and we use this event to do something, we will very likely need something from that record that is deleted. And we've discussed how actually this is executed, this event is before deletion. When we run this in the background, taking it into the following elements into separate thread, this deletion operation will not, unlike with synchronous execution of non-background operations, this deletion operation will not wait for the termination event. So milliseconds from this event being captured, the data will disappear from database. And if in our business process, we then will try to read something from that same source, well, then we will not be able to do because neither the data, because the data simply no longer exists, right? That's it. So with deletion, it is important that we do not run them in the background. There could be some edge cases where it still makes sense. Maybe you don't want that record at all. Saving its ID is enough, and you will have that ID as a value in parameter. You won't be able to do anything with that ID actually, but ID is still there. So maybe you will find a case when it's applicable, but standard procedure is not to run this in the background. We will react to insert event, so background works perfectly. So the idea is we are going to add not one, but 3 yacht rentals. And what you could do, you have the add data element. And if we want to add 3 rentals, you could do this 3 times. Wow. I never tested this. What happens if you have this? And by the way, as you can see, a very cool, though accidental example of an element that is not going to be executed. Seemingly, this second element is on the flow. Actually, this arrowhead, incoming arrowhead, is an indication that this element is connected. And if I drag this element around, I will see the flow is attached and following my element. This one, which is easier to miss, is not actually on the flow. And the problem is there is no really saying when it's going to be executed. In most of these scenarios, it's simply going to be skipped and moved to the next element. In rare occasions, it's going to be the only element that is executed. This is because of the how business process manager works, how it interprets metadata, and it will depend on the type of element. For example, the termination event, if outside of the schema, for example, and you can easily miss this like so. So the only element that is going to be executed is a termination, but it can very easily be debugged if, like we've done already with our script task with the visual tool. So I was saying that you can add 3 items like so, but this is not a recommended approach because any modification will require you carefully modifying all 3 elements. Also, I'm very unhappy with how this element was named. I can see a dot here, so we should avoid this at all costs. This will break element execution as long as I need something from this element. If I would later need some parameters from this element, like one of these parameters somewhere down the road, I won't be able to extract them because of this dot. So bad auto naming here. Well, not auto naming, this is just a generic naming. So we're not going to add 3 elements for our 3 yachts. We will do something else. But let's add a first yacht to begin with. So we will add a new rental, add data element. We'll call this element add rental or just rental because this icon already states that this is the add record element. We're adding to yacht rentals, adding 1 record. Selection would require a template. We don't have one, so we're adding 1 record at a time. And so which columns we want to add to? Now, one thing that I skipped, which I shouldn't really, is the name of your signals. You will want to easily also to debugging purposes, just like your termination events, when there's more than one should have names, same as with signals. You will have more complex scenarios where the same process is reacting to multiple signals, but also it can still, the same process, be launched manually by you as a system administrator, which means that you will need to introduce a simple signal also. You cannot simply run a process that is designed to react to event only. So if you want to have a log that is easy to read, your signal has to have a proper name, yacht added. Back to our rental insert. So which column values to set? The very first value that we want to set to avoid orphan rentals. To remind you, our rentals, they are connected to a yacht, and we have a special we did not allow to modify this, as I remember now, but we know that there is a column parent yacht that connects this record to a specific yacht. So this is the first item that we want to take care about. So add field, parent yacht, lightning, process parameter, and our signals will always store the ID of the object instance of the record that is responsible for triggering this business process. So unique identifier. Now our rental has a parent, and we will also add rental start and rental end. Rental start, I don't like how they are added. So let's do this. Rental start first, and then rental end. Perfect. So rental start, we are going to use a system variable, which is a current date. We could have added date time, but we added date. We can insert current date time to current date, but this is unnecessary. So date time is a very complex class with a lot of flexibility. We could also go to formula, and we can rely here on static lookup values, on our own system settings, which is a very useful thing to do rather than hard coding some values into the business processes. We can create new global variables as system settings. And when something changes, we change one setting, and everything that is reliant on it, either our object constructors, our business processes, even our client, will immediately react. So this is very useful. And system variable, which is the same as we've done, so we can still use current date from here. So it doesn't matter which one we use. We will select current date variable from here. Rental end, same, but not same. We will use formula. Let's use formula. We will use current date. And by default, this is something that user will be able to modify, but we will add one day to it. So it's going to be, again, we're using these macros here. This is meant for business process engine. It will be turned into proper read mode, but then we can use some formula expressions, and we can, for example, add days 1. So we're using add day method which is applicable to date. And if we get here, read more about formula, we've discussed this briefly, we will see some process formulas. And you might think that, hey, this is only useful for people who are maybe new to C# or no-code creators who don't know C# syntaxes, but I can do what I need to just simply knowing C#. But there should be a hint for you. When you introduce a formula and you save the business process, you are not asked to compile. You only compile the scripted task, but not a formula. So what it tells you is that whatever is in your formula is still part of the interpretation, and it can only be what can be interpreted is only something that is expected by business process engine. So maybe you will find some formula expressions that may be not present in this article, but you are actually restricted to it, to these rules and examples, because this is what Business Process Engine can interpret in runtime. So you're not very flexible here, actually, but sort of there are still a lot of cool, capable items that we can use. And the one that we're doing is adding one day, and you can try something else by reading formulas. Okay. So now I have added just one rental, and I want to add 3. So I will make this something that can be easily modified, and I will create a healthy loop. A healthy loop because this is something that is okay to do. I will introduce a parameter n that I will set to 3, and every time I'm adding a rental record, I will decrease that global parameter by 1. So add parameter, integer, title n, code the same. It's going to be an internal parameter, and the default value is 0. We're going to add 3 rentals, so the value will be set to 3. When I've added the rental now, my first action is going to be decreasing this value to 2, meaning that I still need to add 2 more rentals. So that is going to be formula. I'll call this formula n-1. First left side of the expression is what I am to modify. Process parameters, n, is what we're changing. Changing how? Changing the current value -1. So you know that there are some shorter expressions in C# how to add 1, -1, current value. Again, you can test some of them, but usually if it's not in the article, then they're not available to you. So current n-1, and then as long as the end is over 0, so I still need to add more yachts, I will be navigating back to this insert item. So I'm creating a loop here, and I'm returning back under a condition. The condition is that n, current end, is still greater than 0. And I will simply use this for the condition itself. So process parameters, double click on n, greater than 0. Save. So first execution, after adding rental, I'm changing 3 -1 to 2. This is still true, and we go back, and we go back, and we go back until after this execution n is actually reaching 0. So this is no longer true. And we create here a default flow, which is essentially our else. So we have this ruby indicating that this is a condition, this slash saying that this is a default flow. You can still technically try this sequence. The condition will usually have priority, but if you have multiple conditions, it gets tricky, and this wasn't designed to do this. So you want a default or other condition. In fact, if you try to add a new flow, it will be set to conditional automatically because the other one is conditional. So we will have this default flow. And now we can save this process and test it. yacht section, new yacht. Test 3 already exists, so I'll call this test 4. Test 4. I have some validators in place, as we remember, so let's edit some proper price, feet, passengers count 14, drive type doesn't matter, status matters, and status is operational by default. If I navigate back, I will see that yacht rentals are added automatically. Maybe we can properly now use the live data update because we had some issues. Let's see this insert happen automatically. So I will do two things now. First, I will go to my yacht rentals. And just like before, I will, rentals already have live data update enabled. Okay, so no need to modify this. But the other thing that I want to modify, yacht form page, the default way Creatio behaves is when I hit the save button for the first time when I create a record, it will close this record, return me to the list view, and put newly created record on top of the list, no matter the sorting. This is for my convenience, that this is on top. Sometimes when we have more complex data and our users need to add a lot of items before saving record, and it can be frustrating if something went wrong. So saying financial institution, building a new account, a lot of inputs are required. So we will disable that default behavior. Save button. This is a setting that is set to the save data action. And we will stay on the page after a record is created. Reload might be necessary if we don't use live data update. Let's add test 5. I will need to refresh user browser tab. I have just modified my client. New test 5, 7,000, 25 feet, crew count 2, passenger count 15, drive type doesn't matter. And so I hit save and I see yacht rentals updated immediately. And if you were attentive, you would see that they haven't added all three one time. There is this is a WebSocket operation, so it doesn't do this every millisecond, but actually this insert operation does require time, so they will not appear simultaneously, even though the execution is super fast. So this is one way to react to events. Another one is obsolete, but it can be confusing. It's actually supported, but unless you will be involved into some very old project, it is very unlikely that you will use this. I will explain why. But there can be a lot of confusions because of these items present. And so we are talking about handling object events, and we have a special tab here, events. And it looks very neat because unlike with our business process, we have a lot of events. We have after record updated and before record updated. And by the way, I believe I mentioned that we have in the backlog task to have 6 events in business processes, which means that we will in this 2026 we will have events before added, after added, before modified, after modified, before deleted, after deleted, which is super cool. Right now, we can only handle those with code or using this outdated method, where we have 13 different events We have even validation, error saving record, loading default values. So very unique events. And they're cool, but saved means that it will react to both insert and update. But the problem is that this works only for entities, entity schemas, objects. We're using these interchangeably, right? And also data models, though rarely used. So we're only using them for those that are not compiled into the separate assembly. So just to remind you, our package has a special property by default enabled to compile this into a separate assembly, which means that I do not have to recompile the whole application when I make some minor modifications to object. I can only use these events if I'm not compiling to separate assembly, and the trade-off is simply not worth it because this will make the development process much, much harder. But if you are involved in older project and also to explain some of the items that can be confusing, we have this open process action for our object. And here we see what seems to be a business process, but essentially the structure is that every object has an embedded process. Actually, it's a very simple structure here. So we only have very few items available here. And so the idea is that we can, through the subprocess event, if we've enabled some event here, I'm copying the name of this event, and in such a process, I need to specify what is the message triggering this embedded process. So user yacht updated, simply copy pasted it from here since I've activated this events reaction. And I'm only limited here to formulas, script tasks, and user tasks. So I can use a user task, connect, and now do something about that event with my user task. Or if I need to send something to client, I will then use a user task as an example. So if you wish, you can find some examples in older versions of Contact. I wonder. Yeah. So we have a lot, but the thing is that the fact that they're present doesn't mean that they work. Again, there could be some projects that they still do, but contacts are now also compiled into a separate assembly. So none of these works, but this can be an example how this can be employed. So this is an obsolete method. Right now, if we need to react to more complex events, 8 events, not 6. So the naming should be pretty self-explanatory. So on deleted and on deleting. On deleting means before deletion. On deleted means that record had been deleted already and we react. So on deleting is like it would work in business process. But if the record had been deleted already in business process, as of now, we don't have a reaction to this. Also, on inserting. with yacht rentals, we've implemented no code for on inserted. Yacht was added already. On inserting means that yacht is about to be added. Same with updating. So we have 6 for before and after insert, update, delete. And we also have 2 more on saved, on saving. Another very useful feature so that we don't recreate the same logic for insert and update. So this will react to both adding a record and modifying an existing record. And obviously saved after, saving before. And so we have some classes here, some examples how to use this. And we will introduce our own event. Day 9. Here is the event. Sorry, I need a moment. Yep. Please confirm my screen is there. A thumbs up, if you don't mind. Yep, thank you so much. Okay, so back to our task at hand. We will now create an event that we will use for a validation, and it will react to an entity change. So it wouldn't matter how, if our integration affects the entity object, user action affects object, or business process affects object, like with our yacht rental. This adding record. No, sorry, this is test. This adding record. Yeah, I do have some errors with connection, but hopefully we're stable enough. Okay, so here we're also inserting a record through an instance of the rental object. So user business process integration, as long as the entity is involved, we will be able to work with it. Back to configuration, advanced settings, yacht, and we are going to add a new source code file. Add source code. We'll call this user yacht events. Title, yacht events, and apply. Now we can still use the file system, but I want to save some time. So we've already tried file system. Now I will do exactly as you will do if you are using the cloud environment. So I'll copy this code first. And let's explain this. So first, we're using some core entities, operations, and entities events. This is important. We've already talked about class decoration. Just like we need to decorate a class for we need to use a specific decoration for service. We also need a specific decoration for event listener. So this is something that you will need to add always. and you will have to specify the schema name. Our schema name is user yacht. Now we overriding the default on saving, and this is a structure how event handling is working in C# in general. So we have a sender, and first we implement, this is unique to this approach in Creatio. I think this is just a fail safe, but first we implement the parent that we are overriding, the original on saving we implement if we need that reaction in the first place. Then finally, we are using our sender, so our entity. We simply give it a name yacht because we know this to be yacht, right? So we are working with this sender. We call this yacht. And now we using the method that we've actually used previously, an entity method, get typed column value. We need price. Oh, sorry, maybe I should have explained. So again, the validation is regarding the price. If user tries to add a new yacht that is over 100,000 pounds, then we will reject such insert and update. This is why we're using on saving. So this is before update, before insert. So when user tries to do any user process, whatever, when something is trying to insert or update with the price over 100,000, we will reject it. So this is why we need to get typed value, and we specify that we needing a decimal value from user price. And if the price over 100,000, we can use, we will see this actually in the events. So we have this graceful rejection, but this is actually enough to reject the insert. This is enough. The problem is that this graceful rejection is too silent, so nothing happens from user perspective. And we're going to test this as a user, and user will not know that we've rejected this insert and will not know why. So instead, we are going to use what we've used already a little, a localizable string. Localizable string will need a manager. Our manager is this user yacht events, C# source code. And then the instance of the localizable string will have a property that is called value too big, and then it will have some value. So how will this work? So we need this name. Value is too big. Add localizable string. Code value. The very maximum price is, and this is how we're making this reference. Add, and we are using for that value 100,000 pounds. So let's save and publish this event. Okay. Let's try a new yacht, name test 6. We still need some to pass some validations because we won't even be allowed. I don't remember quite what is validated, but we won't be allowed to save. And we will try 101 thousandths. Save. We see the very maximum price is 100,000 pounds. And we have under our network an insert query that returns an internal server error. And it has a response. The response is the exception thrown that the very maximum price is 100,000 pounds. So this is how we implement our event handling with C#. We will also see this on Monday, how it will be reacting to our integration. We will use some data integrations, so this will still work. Today, we're reacting to user action. Well, we can actually try and modify just to be on the safe side. And I will try to change HMS Victory to 1 million pounds. And I should expect the same. Save. Now it's update query that returns internal server error because of our validation. Okay, now to the next item. Next item is Clio, and we've already talked a little about Clio on day 3, so maybe you've installed up until now. Clio became part of Creatio family of Creatio products only very recently, but now we actually thankfully have some, even if a little bit limited, but frequently updated. um, sorry, just interesting in this one, but we have some articles available immediately, but Clio. But maybe before even Clio, something that you might come across is work space console. Yeah, so there is another workspace console, which is a tool that can be used by both integrators and also Creatio developers who develop platform functionality and maybe even integrators. So this is still operational. You can still use this. You can still run some items, which is helpful for delivery. So we can install packages, transfer packages, related data, transfer localizable resources. This is when this workspace console is primarily used by integrators. But the thing is that you can only use this, and this is the biggest limitation, you can only use this on a local environment. So this is unavailable to your cloud environment. And as we've discussed, most of Creatio environments are cloud. So you won't be even able to enable this, and probably never will, because Creatio enthusiasts feel the need of a different tool. So there is a group called Advanced Technologies Foundation. Primarily, it consists of Creatio employees We have some top three contributors: Kirill Krylov, Vladimir Nikonov, and Pavel Shvedun. Uh, Open source, so you can contribute on your own. This tool, before you use it, you will need to understand that this tool is made by Creatio Pros for Creatio Pros. As of now, it is not very useful, user-friendly. It uses a command line. Now, there are some very early in development extra utilities that will turn this potentially someday into something that can be employed by no-code creators and can be more easier use for you to you as well. As of now, well, it's not fully documented. Well, it is well documented, but um, you will need to do some investigation. So we will only look into the like high-level capabilities and maybe the most useful, especially in the beginning, the most useful commands. So again to Clio, and we have Clio installation guide. So we first want to run a list of SDKs because we need .NET 8. In fact, if you want to run your Creatio locally, you also need 9 now due to Creatio AI. But just to remind you, Clio is not necessarily meant for on-prem environments. So if you're using trial cloud environment, feel free to test Clio also. So you want to check if you have .NET 8 install, and then you run this .NET tool update or install, this is the same command, Clio globally. You should install it globally. So this is only the operation that is available to system administrator. And we can then test our Clio version to check if we have this installed. So now we can test this. I've already installed this on day 3. If you followed, then you will also have Clio installed. I will need a moment. So the run is what? Clio version. Clio version. Okay, perfect. So I see where my app settings are. And now let's check into operations that we can run with Clio. There are over 100 operations, some only necessary for more advanced projects, but you start with something that we've already did on day 3. And I would recommend, even if you have one cloud operation, I would encourage you to test this still. So on day 3, the first thing that we've did is we registered our Y3 dev and Y4 dev. We need this registration so other commands like Clio ping, we will only use by the alias of a Creatio instance. And again, it doesn't matter, local or cloud instance. Then something that I was using to fasten delivery, 2 commands to download application and install application. But please don't confuse application and packages. If you have a yacht application that has multiple packages and yacht is only one of user yacht is only one of those packages, if you try to download and install package instead of application, you will only work with the package itself, not the application. So all the other packages content will be missing. So be careful. Clio is a very powerful tool, but a tool that is designed to be used very responsibly. Now we also have short names for these commands. Unfortunately, they are not available here. The reason for that is because the short commands are actually there are multiple short commands for the same operations. So this is why when it's multiple, you will see that this is not populated. This is something that you can actually address yourself, but here is push pkg, pull pkg. So this is package, not an installation. Uh, generate package zip, extract package zip. These are also package operations. And in all truth, I think that as of now, for modern Creatio project, you should maybe stick to applications. It's just safer that way. That extra level that has also some information about application should travel packed as application. So we have reg web app, unreg web app, show web app list of your registered applications. And so we can check our applications. Short for the same operation is envs for environments. And I have some more. So I have this credentials registered, even though you will probably see that I don't have such an application pool. And I wouldn't be able to do anything with this. This means that this is simply registered, but if this application is no longer available, then obviously my commands uh, targeted towards this app will not work. Cloud applications, as you can see, also support it no problem. And I see my applications, these two I used for preparations, and these two we factually used for our delivery. So back to list of what we can do. Important stuff. So we can initialize new applications. This one is super important. We will run this. This one is super important. We can do ping pong. We can only show local environments. We can restore a NuGet package to a folder, update our Clio, create and restore workspaces. But this is rarely, this is more on the advanced level. We can do the health check and we have a shortcut. Let's try this maybe. So Clio, what was the shortcut for it? HC, I think. Clio, environment Y5 dev, health check, if I'm not mistaken. No, incorrect application. What if I just Clio run first health check Y5 dev? Will this work? No, we'll need to go to documentation. So obviously a lot of items are available here. What I wanted to install, yeah, we can clear Redis for specific database rather than running Redis clean. This is something that you might do quite frequently. We can unlock somewhere here, unlock packages. We can, this we will try to install maybe later. I think I wanted also to restart unlock. So we used this restart application, and we installed a new tool for it. But that new tool doesn't really bring any functionality. The restart service is actually available in Creatio. For whatever reasons, Creatio developers did not simply introduce an item or a button to start this. So these maintenance only adds some interface items. Services are already there. So it's not really necessary to restart this application or to run SQL scripts to unlock your packages or to export, import zip archives. Everything is available with Clio. Now, sorry, this is not what I intended. I only tried a few. I wonder what this application icon, why do I need this? But probably every icons have its index. I don't know why would I want to do this with Clio rather than in Creatio instance. But yeah, you will see that there is a lot of usefuls. But most of them will require to add something important into your Creatio app. This will require installing some sorry, I'm seeing a warning. I need a moment here. Sorry, just a moment. My connection is about to be interrupted. I need a moment. Yeah, sorry, I can be interrupted, but I think we only have like 10 minutes left, so let's leave it to a chance. Okay, so we also need to install Gate into our Clio, and we can actually we can check how this works. So Clio, GitHub, install Gate. And this I think it comes from Copilot, this answer. So not documentation. Don't quite know this, but Clio install Gate. Oh yeah. Clio install Gate E, some environment in your terminal. Oh, sources. Will it navigate us? Nah, no, it's not going. We can find install Gate here. install gate. Mm. Well, let's try this. Okay, so we have our Y3Dev installed already, registered in Clio already. So we will run Clio install gate. Install gate Y3Dev. We see that restart already started, and you see that in my browser, instead of my favicon, I have this preloader icon, which is expected. I won't be able to work with my Creatio environment until it's done. And now let's try to refresh the configuration. And we will see the Clio Gate package here with some necessary items. It's not, as you remember, actually there are more items that were what I see rendered into here as configuration items. So now Clio can actually run some more complex tasks regarding Y3Dev. For example, I think unlocking packages would already require this because it builds it. You can also use Clio to build any SQL query, but I think to unlock package, you already need this. And another thing that I wanted to show is this one, install Tide, which is only available after you have your Clio Gate available. Install Tide to environment Y3Dev. And it will end up with restart. So the items that I did not show, which is the most repetitively used one, is this delivery instance. And just to remind you, you can, even with the same expression, you can use commas to extract multiple applications to multiple zip archives and install them into your targeted environment. You can use these commands to install two multiple targeted environments, which is something that usually happens if you have more than one test environment. Then you will download from one environment, but then install to multiple environments. So you put together this commands into a CMD file and you click it once and it's too long. I think we will run into an issue and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing something in my Windows, but there is actually another one that is helpful. So back to this item. And you will be Seems to be okay. We'll test this now. And you will have multiple items in the same CMD file. You open it, you click this twice, and this becomes your strategy of delivery, that you only do the delivery through that CMD file and none other. Let's try refresh this. And yeah, Tide successfully installed. And this is not something that we can easily recommend, but I would definitely recommend to keep hand on the pulse. This tool is in early stage of development, but well, hopefully this already explains this. So now we have this challenge when we are developing in cloud environment, we cannot use version control. So this is why I've installed locally to show this to you. By the way, it's time to actually update. It should be done much more frequently that I'm doing, just saving us some time. So this is only available. This is only available in day 9. Only available with local environment. Oh, what I'm doing, I'm so wrong. So wrong. You see, I'm in a hurry, but this is what we discussed. The local instances in version control, they do expect that you sort of have some discipline, and I should have uh, downloaded to file system. Now I need to undo my commitment, update, and do this properly. But the biggest challenge is when you, as a developer, use a local environment because you want file system, external IDEs, but in your team, there are multiple no-code creators that would like to use cloud environment, and you will also maybe feel safer if they would use only cloud environment. So you can simply not cooperate. The idea of Tide is to create a tool that will allow you to link your cloud environment to some um, cloud repository, and so you can commit, push, and pull using it just the same as you would do with your local environment. But this is still early in development. You will be facing some issues. Also, we have these branches here, but um, the general recommendation for Creatio is because Creatio um, wouldn't know. So actually using just the trunk strategy, using one main branch. So again, this is very early. You can test this, especially some demo environments, trial environments. More likely than not, you will need to fight a little with it. But then you will be able to push and pull. But this is at this point in time, maybe not for your real projects because, well, it can be a little bit buggy as of now. So this is your Tide application. So feel free to install and play with it. Now, to the end of our day today, home assignment. Well, first, if you haven't done this already, so I heard that some of you did already, do the service. I'll need a moment. This is your final assignment. I would still recommend you to try and repeat everything that we will do on Monday, but this essentially is your final assignment for your fast track. So first, you will have to implement that web service. If something doesn't work, if drive type ID is null, it should return -1. Otherwise, it should show you average price for all yacht records. Implementation method, C# code in the source code schema. The other one is to implement a button to create set of yacht rentals. Mechanism should add 3 records. For the first added rental record, set the next date 7 days later from the current date. Implementation method at your discretion, but business process is preferable. And also for testing, make sure that your yacht rentals are using live data update. So this is your home assignment. I would still encourage you to also to use the validation, just like we've done. Maybe for your validation, I think that your page validation reacts differently. So if someone is trying to add a yacht that is optional, C# event handler that will react to maybe just react to insert only of a yacht with price smaller than 10 pounds. So that's it for the home assignment. And as usually,